You've probably heard all the hype about Texas, right? With no state income tax, a booming energy sector, and a flood of tech jobs, it seemed like those quiet suburbs were just getting more and more desirable. For years, buying a house here felt like winning the lottery. But what happens when that dream begins to fade? You've noticed the signs. Those for sale signs aren't just appearing here and there, they are everywhere, staying on lawns for weeks, and sometimes even months. Price cuts that used to be a quiet whisper are now loud and clear. This isn't just a little slowdown or a typical market correction. In the suburbs we're about to explore, it's a full-blown meltdown. I'm going to take you on a road trip to 10 suburbs where the Texas housing dream is flipping into a financial nightmare. These spots soared too high and are now facing some serious issues. The number of homes for sale is skyrocketing, demand has dried up, and sellers are feeling trapped. And let me tell you, the number one suburb we visit was seen as completely unstoppable just a year ago. Trust me, you'll want to see this. If you're a homeowner in Texas or just curious about the market, this is the scoop you need. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below about which suburb has you most concerned. Now let's grab those keys because our first stop is in the bustling heart of the DFW Metroplex. Kicking off at number 10, we find ourselves in Frisco. Not long ago, this town was the shining example of growth in the DFW area, drawing in families and businesses with its top-notch schools and endless amenities. Fast forward to today, and Frisco is now a textbook case of overbuilding. There's an overwhelming amount of new construction happening, and it's quite shocking. Take a drive around Frisco and you'll come across whole neighborhoods that feel like ghost towns. Recent data shows that the number of new homes for sale has shot up by over 40% in just the last 6 months. These homes aren't custom built. They're cookie-cutter houses slapped together quickly, and they're all sitting empty. The builders are starting to panic. According to Redfin's market analysis, a jaw-dropping 1 in 3 active listings in Frisco has seen a price drop. We're not just talking about a few $1,000s here either. We're looking at reductions of $50,000, $70,000, and even up to $100,000 from the original asking price. The kicker? Even with these massive cuts, homes are still incredibly unaffordable. The median home price remains at a level that feels totally out of reach. Hey everyone, it's Alex Harper from Mortgage Monitor. Let's dive into the housing situation in some Texas suburbs that are really struggling right now. Starting off with Frisco, it's facing a huge issue with home prices dropping. The affordability index here has reached a 20-year low, according to the National Association of Realtors. If you bought a house in 2021 or 2022, it's tough out there. You're up against brand new homes from builders who are sweetening the deal with things like interest rates down to 4% and offering $50,000 in design credits. The resale market just can't keep up. Homes in Frisco are now sitting on the market for about 75 days, which is a massive change from just a year ago when they were gone in a weekend. So if you own a home in Frisco, the value you thought you had, it's slipping away fast. Let me know in the comments if you're seeing this in your area. Next up is McKinney, right next door to Frisco. If Frisco is overwhelmed with homes, McKinney is kind of in a standstill because of the interest rates. Think of it as the golden handcuffs effect, where people feel trapped. A lot of homeowners here bought during the peak with 3% loans, and now they're stuck. They can't afford to sell since any new mortgage would double their monthly payments. This has turned McKinney into a toxic, stagnant market. Unlike Frisco, the inventory isn't piling up from new builds, but existing homes are just sitting there. In fact, data from the Texas Real Estate Research Center shows that homes are taking over 110% longer to sell compared to last year. Can you believe it? Sellers seem to be in denial, listing their homes at prices based on what their neighbors sold for 2 years ago, but that market is long gone. A report from Realtor.com pointed out that McKinney has one of the biggest gaps in the DFW area between the median list price and the median sold price, now over 8%. This gap represents the harsh reality sellers are facing. The situation is painful as sales have dropped nearly 30%. The only homes that are selling are those from sellers who are ready to make a deal and cut their prices. Let's talk about what's happening in Prosper, Texas. The place that sounds almost like a joke when you consider the housing market right now? It was once the go-to spot for those dreaming of luxury homes, especially if you were looking to snag a $1 million mansion on a nice lot. However, the luxury market here is really taking a hit, and it's kind of disastrous. We're seeing a massive spike in the number of homes priced over $1.5 million, upwards of 50%. These high-end homes are just sitting empty, and if you think home prices are dropping, you're not wrong. In fact, it's not unusual to see price cuts of $200,000, $300,000, or even $500,000. This isn't just a little adjustment. These are desperate sales. Builders who went all in on these fancy mansions are now in big trouble. The material costs, which they use to defend those high prices, have leveled off, but their construction loans are weighing them down. They need to sell these places fast, which is dragging down prices for everyone else too. Imagine you bought $1 million home in Prosper just 2 years ago. Now your new neighbor could be a builder who recently unloaded a similar home for $750,000. Yikes! That could wipe out a good chunk of your equity. Plus, luxury homes are sitting on the market for over 100 days, which means longer periods of paying huge mortgages, taxes, and insurance on empty properties. This really is a tough time for the high-end market. So if you thought being wealthy would protect you here and prosper, think again. When things fall apart, they do so spectacularly. Now let's take a drive over to Salina, another suburb in the DFW area. It's definitely what you get when unchecked development keeps pushing way too far, like 30 miles past what's reasonable. Salina has turned into more of a commuter location than an actual town. The whole idea was simple: keep driving until you find a place you can afford. But now that's all it is, just a lot of commuting and not much else going on. So here's the scoop. People moved out here because the crazy prices in Frisco and Prosper drove them away, all chasing the dream of an affordable new home. But let me tell you, that dream came with a hefty hidden cost. The roads? They're just two-lane farm paths, completely overwhelmed by the traffic from about 10,000 new homes. Schools? They're in trailers. And good luck finding a grocery store. It's a 20-minute drive just to grab some essentials. And the commute to Dallas? It's like a 2-hour nightmare every day. Now, here's where it gets rough. The market has shifted, and now the folks who bought homes here out of desperation are among the first to face foreclosure. According to ADAM Data Solutions, Salina and its nearby areas are experiencing some of the highest foreclosure rates in the state. These aren't full-on foreclosures yet, but they're certainly warning signs. When you look around, all you see is a sea of similar homes, thousands of them built in the last 3 years that all look the same. The inventory has skyrocketed by over 60%, and there's nothing that makes one listing stand out from another. It's turning into a race to the bottom, with price cuts becoming the only strategy sellers have left, and they're definitely using it. We're seeing average price cuts around $35,000, which is huge on a $400,000 home. Now, the whole boom was based on the idea that everyone could work from home. But with companies now calling people back to the office, the appeal of living in Salina has crumbled. Just the gas expenses alone can feel like an extra car payment. People are realizing they may have bought a house, but they're missing out on a real life, and they're eager to move on. If you bought in Salina, now you've got to compete with the builders who sold you that dream as they drop prices on the next phase of development. It's a tough situation that feels pretty hopeless. All right, let's take a break from the DFW Metroplex and cruise south on I-35. Now we're entering the Austin area, and let me tell you, the situation here is even scarier. Our first stop is Leander. For a decade, Leander was seen as the answer to Austin's affordability crisis, being the fastest growing city in America for several years. But this growth was fueled by cheap money and a big misunderstanding about something really important: Texas property taxes. Leander's meltdown feels like a ticking time bomb when it comes to taxes. The initial price of the homes wasn't the whole story. The real shock hit when those first property tax bills showed up. Texas doesn't have a state income tax, but let me tell you, it does have the highest property taxes in the country, and Williamson County is leading the charge. So, let's talk about Leander first. If you bought a home there for around $600,000 when prices peaked, you're now looking at some pretty hefty annual tax bills, like $15,000 to $20,000 a year. That's an extra $1,500 each month on top of a mortgage that was already tough to handle. A report from the Texas Taxpayers and Research Association shows that this area has one of the highest effective tax rates in Texas, often hitting close to 3%. A lot of folks didn't really crunch the numbers before buying, and now they're stuck. Selling isn't an option because, according to Redfin, about 25% of homeowners who bought there in the last couple of years owe more on their mortgage than what their homes are worth. The market is flooded right now with inventory up over 55%. It's not just regular homeowners who are feeling the pinch, investors are too. Leander used to be a hot spot for out-of-state buyers who snapped up homes without even seeing them, intending to use them as rentals. But now, those rentals are just sitting empty. With falling rent prices and skyrocketing taxes, investors are scrambling to unload their properties. We're seeing entire blocks of rental homes being sold off at rock-bottom prices. It's a major exodus, and it's really hurting everyday homeowners' property values. Leander is definitely a cautionary tale about the true costs of owning a home, and it's putting many of its residents in a tough spot. Now, just a bit further north, we have Georgetown, which was supposed to be a little slice of paradise for retirees. Known for the huge Sun City development, it attracted a lot of retirees cashing in their pensions from places like California and Illinois, dreaming of a peaceful life in the hill country. But now, the situation in Georgetown has turned their retirement dreams into a nightmare. The cost of living has skyrocketed, and folks on fixed incomes, like pensions and Social Security, are finding it harder to make ends meet. Everything has gone up, but the worst part is the property taxes. Many retirees here are feeling the squeeze. They've lived in their homes for years, but they're now facing tax raises that make it almost impossible to stay. This situation is leading to some really sad stories, confirmed by local tax assessors, where seniors can no longer afford their homes. Because of this, the whole market has come to a standstill. Those seniors who want to sell to move into assisted living just can't make it happen. I've been looking at the housing market lately, and the numbers really tell a story. Active adult communities are struggling, with homes sticking around for an average of 95 days on the market. It seems like buyers have just vanished, and here's why. The math doesn't add up for new retirees anymore. They can't just sell their California homes for $1 million and waltz into a mansion in Georgetown like they used to. Plus, homes in California have also taken a hit in value. This has led to an overwhelming number of homes available, especially in senior-focused communities, which has skyrocketed by over 40%. Those homes aren't exactly appealing to younger families, so a big chunk of potential buyers is missing from the picture. It's like a ticking time bomb for demographics. There's a report from the AARP's Public Policy Institute that highlights how markets leaning heavily on retirees are most susceptible to economic upset. Georgetown is living through that right now. It's not just a little housing mess. For some folks, it feels like their retirement dreams are crumbling. Next, we took a drive down to Kyle, just south of Austin, along the I-35 corridor, which is our fourth stop. Kyle, along with its neighbor Buda, was once buzzing with excitement during the iBuyer frenzy. Companies like Zillow, Opendoor, and OfferPad were snapping up thousands of homes without even seeing them, often bidding tens of thousands over asking. But now, those iBuyers have vanished, leaving chaos in their wake. This situation shows how corporate greed can lead to destruction. From 2020 to 2022, these tech giants were using their algorithms to scoop up housing stock, turning homes into assets to flip instead of places for people to live. Then the market shifted, and suddenly their systems didn't work anymore. Now these companies are in a frantic race to unload their properties, which has led to some staggering statistics. At one point, over 15% of all homes for sale in Kyle were owned by iBuyers. They weren't just part of the market, they essentially were the market. And now they're offloading these homes at huge losses. There are records of houses that were bought for $450,000 and are now being sold for just $320,000. That's a loss of $130,000, and they would happily take that hit just to remove the liability from their books. But what does this mean for the average homeowner? It's devastating. When a corporation next door is selling an identical home for 25% less than you paid, how can you even sell yours? You find yourself in a tough spot, instantly underwater. The data indicates that Kyle has one of the highest rates of distress because of all this. Hey there, let's chat about some suburbs in Texas that are really struggling with housing right now. We're shifting gears from Central Texas and heading east on I-10 to a humid place near Houston, Pearland. Pearland used to be a go-to spot for families, thanks to great schools and its proximity to the medical center. And it was pretty affordable. But that safety net has been torn apart by some big issues, namely the climate crisis and insurance troubles. You see, Pearland isn't even on the coast, but it's still feeling the effects of hurricanes, like Harvey, with serious flooding. Now, the insurance scene in Pearland is a total mess. Big players like Farmers and Allstate are limiting new policies in the area, and those that still operate are hiking their prices up to jaw-dropping levels. Homeowners are telling me that their insurance costs have doubled or even tripled in just 2 years. Can you believe it? We're seeing annual premiums skyrocket to $6,000, $8,000, or even $10,000 for a regular family home. That kind of increase makes it hard for anyone to afford a house. To put it in perspective, a $500 monthly jump in your insurance is like a $100,000 hike in your mortgage. Oh, and it doesn't stop there. Many homes are now being rezoned into new flood zones, which means buyers have to get expensive mandatory flood insurance, adding even more to their bills. Buyers are getting wise to this. They're checking insurance quotes before putting in offers and often walking away shocked. As a result, there's been a 35% rise in inventory and a crash in buyer interest. Who wants to buy a home when they can't even get insurance for it next year? Sellers are in a tough spot, stuck with homes they can't sell and struggling to stay afloat. This is a crisis that needs attention. Without stable and affordable insurance, the housing market just can't hold up. If you live in Pearland, I'd love to hear what your insurance quote looked like this year. I bet it's eye-opening. Now let's move on to number 2, Katy. Let's take a drive west from Houston to Katy. Now, Katy isn't just any suburb. It's made up of a bunch of planned communities like Cinco Ranch, Grand Lakes, and Cane Island. These places are essentially small cities, all built around one industry: oil and gas. The situation in Katy is a classic tale of Texas. When the oil industry is doing well, Katy thrives. But when things get shaky in energy, Katy is hit first. This isn't the same oil crash we saw back in the 80s. It's a different kind of challenge now. The energy sector is in a bit of chaotic state. Companies might be raking in profits, but they aren't hiring like they used to. Instead, they're turning to automation and cutting costs, which usually means layoffs. The high-paying executive jobs that used to support Katy's $600,000 homes aren't as stable anymore, and the market is catching on. The latest data from the Houston Association of Realtors is pretty alarming. For homes priced over $500,000 in Katy, the sales have plummeted by almost 30%. But wait, there's more. The inventory for these homes has surged by 45%. It's a perfect storm of falling demand and soaring supply. Even in the rental market, people are turning to luxury rentals instead of buying because they're unsure about the job situation. This has driven rental prices down and really affected the investors who snapped up those homes. Katy's whole identity was built on having secure, well-paying energy jobs, but that promise has been broken now. We see a market filled with lavish, overpriced homes tied to a wobbly industry. When oil and gas executives start to feel jittery, they stop buying new homes. And right now, they're more nervous than ever. Now, let's travel to Central Texas, because the most surprising meltdown in the state is taking place right in Silicon Hills. The #1 spot for a total housing meltdown in Texas belongs to Round Rock. This one stings. It wasn't supposed to be like this. Round Rock was home to Dell and was seen as the new tech hub, a place that should be resilient to downturns. It was the untouchable market that I had warned you about, and now it's in complete freefall. The issues in Round Rock can be traced directly to the tech bubble bursting. For the last 3 years, we saw companies like Dell, Apple, Tesla, and Meta hiring tons of people, which sent home prices skyrocketing. People were actually buying 2,000 square foot homes for $1 million, and in cash no less. But then the music stopped. The tech layoffs kicked off in 2023, and they haven't let up. It's been a slow, painful process, and with each layoff, another homeowner has to list their home for sale. The numbers are alarming. Take Round Rock, for instance. According to the Austin Board of Realtors, the median home price has dropped by over 20% from its peak. That's the most significant decline in the whole state. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars in lost equity. A report from Zillow shows that more than 30% of homeowners who bought in Round Rock over the last 2 years are now in a really tough spot. They're underwater. They can't sell or refinance. On top of that, the number of homes for sale has skyrocketed by more than 150% from the lowest point. The market is so flooded that builders are offering crazy incentives like free cars, paying 2 years' worth of HOA dues, and even 0% financing. They're doing everything they can to attract buyers. This situation is a downward spiral. Prices are being reset lower every week. If you put your house on the market today, by the time you receive an offer in 60 days, it'll be based on an even lower market value. Round Rock is a prime example of a market that thrived on hype rather than solid fundamentals. It was built on cheap money and the mistaken belief that prices could only keep climbing. The Texas miracle has come to an end in Round Rock. Right now, sellers have no power, buyers are scared, and the only question hanging around is, how much lower can this go? The issues don't stop at Round Rock. From overbuilt ghost towns in DFW to the tax traps in Austin and the insurance troubles in Houston, the Texas housing market isn't just slowing down, it's falling apart in these suburbs. The common problem is that these markets were driven by a momentum that lacked real foundations. Sure, not all of Texas is facing a crisis, but if you're a homeowner in one of these areas, you need to recognize the reality. You're no longer in a seller's market. You're in a tough situation. If this analysis helped you out, I'd really appreciate it if you could share it. Make sure to hit that like button and share this video with anyone in Texas, Don't forget to subscribe too. Your support really helps us keep bringing you the truth, even when it's tough to hear. Thanks for tuning in and take care out there.